with us this morning, and he's going to be talking to us about a wonderful, wonderful work. We're going to give him the class time that he needs this morning, but some of you may not know a great deal about John. He was born and raised in Zimbabwe to missionary parents, and first came to the United States at age 18, and he went to Harding University, and that's where he met his wife, Beth, and they got married in 72. Is that right, John? They've been dating ever since. Isn't that good? It's a good thing. So we're welcoming John this morning, and as our good habit is, we like to begin our classes with a word of prayer. And so if you might bow your head, we'll give the remainder of our time to Brother John. Let's pray. Father, we thank you this morning for the wonderful, wonderful sunshine. We're so blessed with the good rains that you have given to us, but we love the sunshine, Father, and we're thankful for that. We ask that you open our minds and our hearts this morning as Brother Reese speaks to us about this good work that he's involved in and this church supports fully and completely with our hearts and our money and our talents. And we ask that you bless our time together. In Jesus we pray. Amen.
Appreciate that. I think we're on. Good. Appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming together for the combined class. I was hoping for the reporting time to be able to visit with you, and because we want the sermon to be mostly gospel spiritually oriented as compared with a report. So this is a great opportunity, and I thank you very much, those of you who organized to get this, got things rearranged to where we could all meet together. John Reese and Beth is right here in a blue dress, and we have been associated with this congregation for many, many years. I haven't even really calculated it, but we go back a long way together as partners in the gospel. And so I want to use this time to catch you up on some developments that are really very significant, not just for us here in Waxahachie or us in Texas, but really for the Brotherhood wide and for the world wide, because that's who our mission is. World Bible School is based down in Cedar Park near Austin, and we have a wall of honor there. And so if you can think of teachers that ought to be honored in a particular way, we'd love to put them on that wall of honor. We've just now inaugurated the Tex and Mary Jane Williams. Well, really the name of it, Tex has just turned 90. For those of you who know Tex, and I see a number of heads nodding, just turned 90, and so we're inaugurating the Founders Wall of Honor, and that's for leaders and supporters of World Bible School. As you see on our logo, though, World Bible School is actually you, because a good number in this congregation are the teachers. World Bible School's tools are prepared specifically for everyday, ordinary Christians to be able to use to evangelize, both locally and globally, and that's why we say you sharing Jesus. Everything we do is intended to be for the average member to be able to use. And the theme that we've had this year at our presentations has been God is bigger. There are many challenges, many problems in our world, but God is bigger. There's many challenges to carrying out the Great Commission, but God is bigger than those challenges. And you may remember Jesus saying in Mark chapter 11, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. And so when Jesus drew the picture of mountains, he's obviously building an image in our minds. And what would that image convey? What does a mountain convey to your mind? Something something very large, something that seems very permanent, very strength, very hard to move, right? In fact, from our point of view, impossible to move. I mean, I don't remember the last time that any of us, not that we have very many mountains here in our part of Texas, but you know, if we went west of here and said to the Rockies, move, that it moved for us. That doesn't happen. So it's a picture of a challenge that is so much greater than we are. And yet he says that mountain will be moved if we have faith. And of course, the Great Commission itself presents us with many mountains, because Jesus said, go into all the world. Well, that's a huge world. Go to all nations. Well, that's at a very minimum 2,000 different basic cultures around the world, and a good number of them hostile to Christianity. So just in the nature of the Great Commission, go to every creature. Well, now there's 7 billion plus creatures. So just huge mountains in that respect, and that's what we're faced with in the Great Commission. This word mathetes is an anglicized form of a Greek term, mathetes. And does someone remember what mathetes is from your Greek classes way back when? Disciple. That's the word for disciple, mathetes. And we've named this particular method. It's a brand new method. And I'll tell you in a moment how it came about. We have been focusing on the United States for a number of years. And we have discovered some things about reaching Americans. First of all, Americans are very much tuned in. When we advertise on the internet across the world, the folks from the United States are always way ahead of any other country. The next leading countries will be South Africa and Nigeria, and they're way down compared with the U.S. responses. So they're very attuned. They're seeking. They're typing in those search words that find us. But in reaching out to Americans, we found that the younger Americans and younger Westerners in general have a new style of learning. And that is, they don't prefer, now they often have to, go with the old model, which is teacher to student. And that's the way we teach in World Bible School, although the teacher is not so much an authority figure as a friend. But the newer generations prefer peer-to-peer sharing. Of course, there's a lot of reasons for that, and I won't go into those. But they have to do with their perceptions of authority and truth and all of that. But they prefer to share together. And so we have two preparations going, an outreach curriculum that uses video and social media and so forth, and then a training curriculum to show you how to use that in reaching out to younger Americans and younger Westerners. And we'll actually be launching that at the Global Missions Conference. So if you have your 2019 calendar ready, please take down the dates that will be coming up. The first 4 Global Missions Conferences took place, well, the first 3 took place in the general Dallas-Fort Worth area. The last one, which Beth Reese and I organized, was held in Memphis in 2014. And this is where Churches of Christ come together to share the vision of our mission, share the methods to network, and it's usually quite a large gathering, approaching 900 or 1,000 people is what we would like to see. And so we'll be organizing that. World Bible School will be organizing that in October. I didn't put the date there. I'm sorry. Let me tell you. October 10 through 12 of 2019. It's just down the road to you in Austin. Our hosts will be the Brentwood Oaks Church of Christ in Austin. And if you are familiar with Brentwood Oaks, they've got a Christian school there that is very large and lots of classroom space for breakout sessions. A great event for helping Churches of Christ to focus on our mission together and to work together for that great cause. And there's the dates, October 10 through 12, 2019. The theme is deep and wide. How do you think that might relate to the Great Commission? What would be the wide part of the Great Commission? Go into all the world. Go into all the world. That's pretty wide. Go to all nations. That's pretty wide. Okay? What would be the deep? Not just superficial. You're not just getting people wet or getting people to acknowledge Jesus in a superficial way. You are making disciples. Make disciples. That's very deep, especially when you get to the part that says, teaching them to obey all that I have commanded you. So there's a very wide dimension to the Great Commission, and there's a very deep dimension to the Great Commission. And so we'll be exploring those dimensions and the tensions that go along with how to accomplish that. And we would like for as many of you as possible to come down to register when the registration comes online. By the way, we already have, I don't think I've shown it there, or have I? The website, it's in no, at that point it had not been done, but it's gmc2019.org. GMC, in fact, you can look it up right now, gmc2019.org. And once registration comes on, please register for that and come down and join us. And so we've got a lot of preparations. It's a very big conference, approaching 1,000 people. And just yesterday, we got word of $15,000 that's coming in towards that $50,000 that is needed. And of course, this is over and above what we normally do. And the attendance drive is happening right now, especially right here in Central Texas. So plan on that if you would, and it'll be a very encouraging event. I noticed as I came in this morning that someone had one of these beautiful little Bibles. How many of you have received one of these yet? Oh, that's good. Thank you. And Robin's holding it right up there. These are an amazing little tool. Of course, the Bible itself is inspired, so you can't get any more perfect than the Bible itself. The translation might improve, but this one happens to be the English Standard Version, chosen for its accuracy. But the news about the Bibles is phenomenal. In a typical year, we would usually, about 3,000 of those would be moved out of our warehouse and sent out by teachers to their students. Well, since this appeared at the beginning of 2017, 133,000 have already gone out. 133,000 of these beautiful little Bibles in the hands of seekers. And of course, the Bible is the full Old Testament and New Testament, and then the last 110 pages are the study notes that parallel the World Bible School courses. Now, a good many of you have already done World Bible School teaching, so you're familiar with those courses, but they're called the Master Series. Well, this doesn't repeat that information, but what it does is if you have been a World Bible School student, you've gone through these courses, then the Bible gives you information for going deeper in your studies in each of these main topics. If you've never taken World Bible School courses and you receive one of those Bibles, then you become aware, oh, I can go through courses that parallel this material right here. And so in the back of the Bible there is a section of notes on God has spoken, and it's all in question form. We don't tell people what they've got to think. We ask the question and then we point them to the Scriptures. Let them find out for themselves what the Scriptures say relative to who God is and how He reveals Himself to us. And then there's a section called Knowing Jesus. And again, it's all in question form, and it urges them to get to know the Jesus of the Bible. There are other Jesuses. There are other Gospels. We want people to learn the Jesus and the Gospel of the Bible. And so we appoint those questions, point them to go find for themselves in the Scriptures what it says. And of course, the beauty of this is that it is promoting, and especially in the very back section of the Bible, New Testament Christianity. there's a section that is called Guide to New Testament Christianity. And there it is right there on page 1445. Guide to New Testament Christianity was originally designed for isolated students. You know, our students are all around the world. We have students in every country of the world. And a number of those are in places where there are no existing churches of Christ. Well, what does a person there do? If all they're familiar with is what is around them in the world, or with denominational Christianity, how do they become a New Testament Christian? And so that is a number of pages written for that. But at the same time, while it was written originally for the isolated person who wouldn't have much other opportunity, this is also very needed in our day, because the vision of being just Christians, just New Testament Christians, has been slipping in our day. And this is a return to those principles. Let's just be Christians as they were in the New Testament. Let's be Jesus' kind of Christian instead of the way that men have tried to reshape Christianity. And of course, you are familiar with the price of these, I think. How much does one cost in a normal situation? $5 for a full Bible. Now, if you buy them in bulk, if you buy, for example, over 500, how much do you think the price would come down to? $3.25. So, for example, if you wanted, in fact, we had this recently happen. Have any of you heard of Bring Your Bible to School Day? That's been a fairly large movement, just occurred. And so a congregation in Alabama talked to their ISD and said, can we bring Bibles to give to the students? It's just the students would have the initiative. Do they want a Bible or not? They just lay them out on tables for the young people to take if they wanted them. And so they ordered 2,000 Bibles, and at $3.25, that's doable. So for their school district, they distributed, and the students claimed 2,000 Bibles. Well, that kind of thing has led us to our next very big project, which, and I've already talked about the Bible to some extent. Two big projects, actually. I'll start with incentive Bibles. Those of you who are World Bible School teachers know that the students get to a certain point, and sometimes a number of them drop out. There's always a percentage of dropouts. And so we have said to them, if you'll study into the salvation course called Born of Water and Spirit, then World Bible School will make a Bible free to you. Now, the teacher helps with the shipping, or the congregation, in this case, the Waxahachie congregation, helps with the shipping of it, but the Bible itself is free from World Bible School. And so that is designed, and in many places, they don't have any books, period. So this will be the first book in their library. It's a huge incentive to keep moving forward in the Bible studies, because they'll receive a Bible afterwards. The other thing that's even much bigger is called Bibles for Millions. And this is much more than random distribution, and that is useful. Get as many Bibles into as many hands as possible, but that's not what we're talking about. And nor is it one just for a group, or putting it in a public place where a person might or might not find it. This rather is Bibles with relationships. And we're basing that on the story in Acts chapter 8, the Ethiopian official. And if you notice in that, there's two main elements that God brings together. God had somehow provided to this African man a portion of the Bible. Which portion was that? The book of Isaiah. So he's reading the scroll of Isaiah. He has the Bible. But then God sees to it that a person comes alongside him. That person is Philip. Philip comes alongside him and says, do you understand what you're reading? And the man says, how can I understand unless someone helps me? So there's the relationship, providing, yes, the scriptures, but also the person to go along with that who assists. And so Bibles for Millions is not just random distribution. It is rather the bringing alongside of the helpers. And so we recruit the students worldwide, the people who are seekers, who are typing in their search words or respond to our advertising. And then we are recruiting also even more study helpers. That's our word for teachers. And they can learn by paper or by digital means, the computers. And we have both here at Waxahachie. And then the use of the Bible itself. And then we have networks very deliberately being built up around the world of follow-up partners so that it moves from distance learning to face-to-face learning, which we call follow-up. And so it's all about relationships. And in a moment, I'll talk about the supplementary studies that go along with that. There is a huge demand. We don't have plans for this yet, but there is a huge demand for this to come out in a larger print. Some of us are getting a little older now, and so we prefer larger print. But do you know why it was originally done in, it's very readable actually, but do you know why it was done in a smaller print? Because it's correspondence, and it needs to be sent in the mail, so it couldn't be too large a book. But there's enough interest right here in the United States for a larger presentation Bible, so when the budget comes through for that, we will definitely consider it. And then a strong demand, particularly east of the Mississippi, for the New King James Version, and also for the same notes and Bible in Spanish. Of course, in Spanish it wouldn't be the English Standard, it'd be the Standard Spanish version. But there's a great deal of work to be done because we've opened up, evidently we've found a niche that there's a great demand for. Now, people have been sending Bibles and giving Bibles as gifts for years and years, but many times they had to tear out that page at the back that had the wrong information. You know what I'm talking about? Okay. And so this has good, reliable New Testament information. So our goal, initial goal within the first 2 or 3 years, is to move 1 million of these Bibles into the hands of seekers. Now, we're already 1/10 of the way there before we even start. We'll launch it officially in January of 2019. And you'll be reading more about that. I presume that many of you get a chance to see Action newspaper. It may be put out in the foyer, I'm not sure, but if you don't get it personally and you don't have a chance to see it, then just let me know. This is what Action looks like. And we'll send one to your home. Just make sure that we have your postal information for how you want to receive that. But the Bible itself is very valuable, and this, for example, was a message from Bill Lewis, who works in prison ministry in Colorado. And let me check on my time to make sure I'm doing things right. That clock doesn't look right. How much longer do I have? Okay, so squeeze everything else in after you hear that bell. Okay, we'll work it on that basis. So Bill Lewis from prison ministry in Colorado says, this morning we baptized 26 men. Many of them taught themselves with the WBS study Bibles that we have been handing out, and many were taught by others that we had taught and baptized last year through the WBS courses. And of course, the Bible and the courses go together as well. So they had taught themselves from the Bible and from its study notes. Many of you will remember Chris Magadu, who came with me to report last year about this time. And Chris communicates very frequently with, and this is an illustration of the wonderful tools God's given us today. How many of you use a communication thing on your iPhone or your smartphone called WhatsApp? Yes? Okay, some. Well, Chris sends regular messages on WhatsApp. And so this was his message today, and this is a recent message. Today I baptized 75 prisoners in Kwekwe prison, many of whom were Bible school students. In other words, they had studied their way towards that decision. And he says, to God be the glory. And then the beauty of it is, those of you who do prison work or have done prison work, because Waxahachie has been very involved, are you allowed to take pictures in prison? Are you allowed to take pictures in prison? Take photos? No. But looky here. From one of the high security prisons in Zimbabwe is that baptism of 75 that day. He had talked to the warden and he had got permission to use his phone or have someone use the phone to take pictures. So directly out of a high-security prison into my hands virtually the same day. And that's the kind of technology that we have around the world, and that we're trying to take advantage of. And so, for example, with our internet teaching, we've got to the stage where we have to make a very deliberate and intentional upgrade to it. Operating systems keep changing, and so we've got to come up with a permanent solution to keep up with the changes in the technological world. And so that's costing us an extra $300,000, but once we get over that hump, that mountain, then we'll be in much better shape for the many changes yet to come in the technological world. And those of you who teach through paper, what's the biggest problem that paper teaching or postal teaching has? Time delays and failures, actually postal system failures. Sometimes we send lessons out and it'll be 6 months, 9 months, 11 months before the thing comes back. And sometimes it doesn't seem to get there at all. And that has plagued us from the beginning. And so that's a mountain. And for years and years, we've looked at that mountain and thought, how can that ever move? Because we're talking about dealing with students all over the world. Let me show you some of the figures. We have about 7,000 teachers. That's a lot. If we develop some kind of new way of doing things, that's a lot of people to get informed and upgraded. And about 1 million new students per year on the postal side, on the paper side. So that's a lot of people in a lot of countries that have to shift. And so what we've looked at that mountain long enough, and we've said, you know what? God is able to move that mountain, so we're going to work on that. We're going to be praying about it, and we're going to work on it. And what we have found, and I'll go back just one step, that we are going to use pre-position courses. Well, this will be over a period of time, so don't get too excited. Nothing's going to change for you. But pre-position courses where instead of mailing it, we have already shipped the courses into that country, and they're waiting there to be delivered. And then we'll use scanning. Do we use scanning yet here at Waxahachie? Scanning is where the picture of the answer sheet is sent electronically. It's printed out here for the teacher. The teacher's experience is exactly the same, but the image is what's gone across in about a tiny fraction of what post would take. So we're moving in those directions, and we already know that it works because, and this is the kind of numbers that we're working with. This year so far, the country of Malawi, we've recruited 112,000 students. Kenya, 92,000. Nigeria, 87. Ghana, 85. South Africa, 83,000. Zimbabwe, 77,000. Zimbabwe slipped. That was last year, or 2 years back, probably twice that many. But nevertheless, you can see lots and lots of people eager to take our courses. And so if we can speed up delivery and do that turnaround time much faster, that will be a huge, huge benefit. And we do know it works because we've been running now for 3 years a pilot program in the country of Ghana, West Africa. And so Ron Potberg and Brian Davis went there and have checked on that, and we know that we can do it because we've been doing it in that country. So what this does is it eliminates international mail altogether. It still uses paper. By the way, you know, in our modern age, we might think, well, paper is passé. People don't use paper anymore. Do you know that when Americans find us online, 1/3 of them request to receive their lessons by paper? They like to have something in their hands. And of course, in many parts of the world, internet simply does not have the reliability and the affordability to be useful to people. So we still have to use paper in those very receptive parts of the world. So we do know that it works. And those of you who have been teachers for some time have said, well, after we do the master series, these courses here, what else is there? And up till now, all we've been able to do is to say, well, there's this other publishing company and this publishing company, and you can get more supplies from them. Well, that hasn't been a very satisfactory answer, but the problem is we've been looking at that mountain and saying, that's an awfully big mountain to move. to produce more courses and to do it in such a way that doesn't detract from the main reaching out to new people. But again, the Lord is moving that mountain, and so we now are able to announce, and you're one of the first congregations to see them, 2 new supplements, which I wrote, and the one is called Lord Teach Us to Pray. The other one is called Test the Spirits, and this is more for folks who think that they have modern-day prophets and miracle workers, and we're saying compare theirs with the miracles of the Bible. This one, and both of these, by the way, are written at the in the American Quarterly System, and also written in such a way that one of their primary uses would be small groups and classes right here in the United States, as well as being used for students in other parts of the world. So if you'd like, unfortunately, we're at the end of a long tour of travel, and so most of them have gone. But I will leave a couple here with some of the leaders, and then you can check those out. And of course, you can definitely order them from our office in Cedar Park. And so God is supplying these type of things, and Lord willing, we'll be doing some more on this next year. The next 2 courses, I believe, to be printed would be on the difference between the Old and New Covenant, and what that implies about worship, and various other things. So those are the mountains being moved right now. It does take a long time for the kind of quality of Bible study that we want. It takes a long time to produce those courses, and it takes the finances. One of the beautiful things about what's happening with World Bible School is that a number of those mountains that depended on finances are getting moved now, because people are really backing us as supporters and with donations. So we're really grateful for that. Web Ads 2.0 is where we show congregations how they can target specific areas so that anybody typing search words in about Bible study come to their teaching group. That's the larger program is called Connect, and this is the way of reaching out to them. And if you saw a map previously, we are now in 47 of the 50 states. Now, that doesn't mean they're covered. We would like to see the entire United States covered with World Bible School web ads, especially the web ads where it comes back to you with your teaching team teaching them online. And but nevertheless, that is a lot different from a year ago. And so many more of those circles of advertising. So you can choose, for example, Ellis County. Well, let's take the building as the center. You can choose a 10-mile radius, a 25-mile radius, a 50-mile radius, a 100-mile radius. And anybody who types in those search words would come to your teaching team that you set up. That's primarily internet, but as I said, about a third will ask for paper, so they come to your paper teachers. And so this is not just about big numbers. It's true that when we join forces, when we pull together and use tools like this that God has prepared, that we are dealing with very, very large numbers. The number that enrolled this last year was 1,113,000 and something. But that's not about figures. It's about people, about individuals who respond to the gospel and whose lives are changed forever. And you know some of those stories yourself. For example, in Zimbabwe, as Chris and I reported last time when we were with you, in the 10 years since 2007, when you sent us out on one of our campaigns, we take campaigns every year, we initiated a drive that since that time has drawn 2 million students in just from my home country, Zimbabwe. And in the 2016-17 time, we had 5,000 baptisms, confirmed baptisms. And I'm sure this year another 1,000 at least. Well, in fact, I know one congregation that's had 1,119 baptisms this year so far, mainly in Zimbabwe. And so a tremendous harvest that is coming up. And if you want to join us on these campaigns, please put your name and address, or your email, I should say, to Beth. It's 10 minutes, okay? And so while we're there, we do workshops and seminars I'll show you the seminar in just a moment. The day before our seminar, I came to our church building there in Avondale, which is in the capital city, Harare, of Zimbabwe. And two people were in intense studies, not these two. The tall man on the left, on my right, holding up the certificates, was studying with one of our follow-up workers, one of the nationals. And they were in such intense study together with the open Bible that I didn't want to interrupt them. But later, I met the man, the African man there, and his name is Stanley. He is 72 years of age, and he had studied every one of our courses, and there he was very proudly showing the certificates of all of those courses. He had completed the entire master series, the basic series. And his certificate said that he was a student of Jack Carney. The amazing thing was, we had our granddaughter, who's there in the picture, Hadassah, with us, and her congregation in Colorado was shown to be the teaching congregation. Well, we contacted them and said, "Congratulations, Jack Carney, your student has been baptized." And they said, "Jack hasn't been here in a long time." Turned out what it is their teaching team didn't use individual names. They used the name of a previous coordinator, Jack Carney, and so any student thought he's studying with Jack Carney, whereas in fact Jack had moved some time before. So, but still, wonderful that our granddaughter, who's 16, and we tell each of our grandkids, when you're 16, you get to come on a campaign with us, that her home congregation was the ones involved. Then the next day, we had our World Bible School seminar, and we had over 400 pack that university hall where we hold that. And on that, and of course, we break them up into groups so that we meet their specific needs as to where they are in the courses. Beth registers them. And on that particular day, 34 were baptized into Christ. But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. And the real reason we go there is to encourage the folks who are doing follow-up all year long. They're the ones that God is using as reapers for that very wonderful harvest. But we had an opportunity to take part in that and to encourage them and to show our solidarity and to bring some of the equipment and funding that they needed for that. The white man in the far side of the picture is Ken Graves. Ken is the organizer of campaigns for Harding University. So he came on our campaign to check it out and to see if it was suitable for his students. And so I do believe that this next year we will have a good many Harding campaigners with us. And that'll be a blessing to have those young people there with us. And of course, if you're a teacher, you know this is really important to get the news of what happened to your student, because so many times you don't know. Our teachers really do a labor of faith and of love. And much of the time, faith is not seen. So you don't know what's happened to that student out there. But we think it's important when we know of what's happened to a student that we report back. So Beth had registered every student who came to that seminar, and then our granddaughter, Hadassah, is sorting out, and that's just one letter of those who had attended. And so we're reporting those back to the teachers to say, your student came today, this is what they studied, this is what happened, and so they get that encouragement to get that report, which too often they are not able to get that report because our follow-up is so far flung around the globe. But that doesn't mean we don't teach them. Even if we can't guarantee follow-up, we believe that story. You remember what happened in Acts chapter 8? After the Ethiopian after Philip taught the Ethiopian, and then the Spirit caught Philip away, and the Ethiopian went on his way rejoicing. Well, where did he go? He went back to his own home country, Ethiopia. Were there very many Christians there yet? No, there weren't. Why would Philip convert somebody when he couldn't guarantee follow-up in that distant African country? What would be your answer to that? Why would Philip, a responsible Christian leader, teach a man and then let him go back to his home country where there might or might not be follow-up? I believe that's the answer I'm hearing. The Lord's in charge of this mission. The Lord knew how to bring Philip and the Ethiopian together in the first place, and the Lord knew what that man would need and how to nurture him and bring him into contact with others. And that's the philosophy on which we go. We organize as much as we possibly can for follow-up. We guarantee as much as we possibly can, but we're not in charge. And we do believe in the providence and the love of God and his answers to our prayers. Let's go back one and we'll conclude with this thought. Some people look at those big mountains that are being moved and they say, well, you all must have a lot of faith. No, we struggle with faith just as much as anybody does. We struggle with the whole question of, are we taking on too much? Are we committing to too much and we're not going to be able to fulfill? We have all of those struggles. But here's the promise we rely on. This is the parallel to Mark 11 that we read earlier. Jesus says in Matthew 17, if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed. Now, what kind of faith is that? It's kind of tiny, isn't it? Mustard seed's small. So Jesus is saying, even your small, struggling faith, if you'll apply it, if you have faith like a grain of mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. So it's not that we have great faith. Ours is actually more like a mustard seed. But we believe this promise, and we're going to apply our faith, and you're applying it with us. And this is a great teaching congregation. We'd love to see many, many more come and be part of those teaching teams, especially as you ramp up advertising in your area. And so if you would talk to the coordinators of the World Bible School program, ask the elders and various others who would know who to connect with for the digital teaching, the electronic teaching, or for the paper teaching, and that. And we always, in changing systems, we never leave people behind. You will have the same experience you've always had, just better. And we make sure that we don't shake anybody up. And it's entirely your choice at the pace at which you make changes to connect with more people. And so that is you sharing Jesus. This is all about you, actually, because, in fact, you are the missionaries. Yes, it is more expensive and takes more effort to send people to distant places, but even from where you are, you can be carrying out the Great Commission. In fact, you should be. Because Jesus said, go, because I've got all authority, make disciples in all nations and teach them to obey all I have commanded you, which would include make disciples. So you're a disciple maker with the gifts, abilities, and opportunities God's given you. And these are some of the tools that you can be using from right here in Waxahachie and Dallas County to be reaching locally and around the world with the good news of Jesus. And thank you so much for the support that you give to Beth and me in being partners with you for the spread of the word.